and the plane gets hit in the wing, and just on the outside of the last engine, and it breaks off, and this plane starts into a nosedive, and a good portion of the fuselage starts to go up in flames. And these guys are like, because they're trained as a team from the beginning, is they're all very close with everybody, and their main concern is we all have to get out. And they start like, bail out, because they're rocketing towards the ground. Like, that's a big machine that's now in a complete nosedive towards the ground as they're getting out. But the two guys in the cockpit are trapped by their buckles because of all this damage that this plane's sustained. And this last guy is kind of looking down, and he knows that this is the last second that I have to jump out. But like, my two buddies are trapped in there and they're done for. Like that, just that moment of like looking at someone that you like can't possibly save, and like having to jump out and be like, yeah, man, like you have to live with that for the rest of your life. It's most certainly not always the situations that you can handle, but it's the one that's that like just leave like a scar that you'll never be able to like outgrow.
Well, that's gonna change you. That's going to change you at a fundamental level, irrevocably, and I've never been through anything like that. That's why I think someone like just these stories in these old books, and like, because these soldiers were human beings too, and some of them were amazing writers and poets, and so we can get their firsthand accounts of what this kind of experience is and what it's like and how it might leave an impact on you. And I think that perspective is so crucial, because we live in such a comfy, our culture is so good.
Yeah, it's pretty comfy.
It's comfy, and it's good at protecting us to the point that we've almost entirely forgotten what real adversity is. And I don't mean to try and cheapen people's struggles, because it's no joke, when people get terminal illness, or when someone gives birth to a retarded kid with no legs, or, I mean, people's lives are tragic beyond belief, even still, despite how good our culture is at protecting us all. But part of the value, I think, in these stories is that I can have access to this perspective I wouldn't have had otherwise, without learning it through, kind of secondhand from these people. And for me, it has the effect of giving me the strength I need to be able to handle whatever tragedy I do face, because I know that it could be so much worse despite how bad it is. And that's not an easy thing to remember. And that's definitely not the kind of thing you need to... Like, that's not how you would console your friend who's dying of cancer, Yeah. Hey, it could be worse.
Yeah, man, you're dying of cancer, but you're not going down in a flying fortress over Germany right now, man. Yeah, you're not,
That's not what your friend wants to hear, but...
But I feel like we learn and we grow from sitting down and listening to other people's perspectives and coming together to a greater consensus of things, and like definitely helping each other. And it's something I had a really good talk with my folks about last night. My dad and my brother driving in, but it goes into this. People receive these scars from warfare, and they come home and they certainly need help, because they've gone through this unparalleled struggle of life and death, and like to go from maybe being a farm boy in Connecticut to dodging shells and hot lead racing over your head and watching your friends die. But we had a guy in Canada who recently came back. I can't remember his name, but it's going to be a very big look into our Veterans Affairs program. But he went over to Afghanistan and saw some things, and some of these situations he were in were pretty not good. But before he went over, he was generally known to be a very happy-go-lucky, kind of jokeful guy. But came home and seemed a little bit off, but nothing out of the blue. But one night kind of went and shot his wife, his daughter, and his mother-in-law, and then shot himself. And it's just like these shootings that happen either of a veteran who's come back from some of these recent battlefields are still casualties of war. And people are saying, like, how do we help these people? And some people have, as this conversation we had last night, is Veterans Affairs has been saying, like, we have to either have some of these people, like, reallocated back to a major population area where you're easier to help. We can't make it out to rural Quebec to come and, like, look after you all the time, but to have someone who goes and serves their country and comes back from war, and you have to say you now have to live here because that's the only place we're going to be able to help you is...
Well, it's kind of the weird thing about... This is going to be a grossly inadequate analogy, but, you know, it's a difficult conversation. But I feel like there's some sort of parallel. This is just what pops in my head, is that, you know, if you're always tying your kids' shoes, they're never going to learn how to tie their own shoes, and they're never going to be self-sufficient. And I don't know, what is it? It's like it's like the monkey pulling the fish up the tree to save it from drowning.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But at the same token, obviously not everyone gets through these experiences and remains at all mentally intact. And what do you do with people like that? I mean, it obviously has to be a case-by-case basis, but because everyone's unique and everyone's going to process and handle these things differently. And then who knows if someone has some sort of, you know, predisposition towards a certain kind of mental illness that's kind of dormant, or maybe it was undiagnosed and then you get over in the war and then you just, you're never the same. And how do you care for these people? And can you even? And I don't know, man, it's complicated. And wow, it's just,
I think about something you said of, like, man, like, I wonder if I could go through it, and it's in the way of, like, you would look at most people and being like, saying, like, I certainly hope you never have to, like, like the prevention of these things over the recovery of the act.
Well, I wonder
if people... It's just like you have these servicemen and they're like, I would lay my life down for my country. And it's like, well, I certainly hope that you never have to, or have to kill someone for your country in that manner either. Like, I don't wish that for people. Like, man, it seems like we all want to have life, love, and security and the ability to prosper. And it's any time one of those things are kicked out from under someone's feet, is you're gonna have a problem. Like, most people just want to be left alone to their own devices to be happy, and, like, when that's interfered with is
because then maybe someone, like, you could take another case where someone comes back and perhaps they're obviously scarred from the war, and maybe just the thing they need is to be home and with their family in the woods. And maybe forcing them to live somewhere more urban would be the thing that pushed them over the edge, as far as, you know, because you could easily just imagine you become resentful of the fact that you just went over and sacrificed yourself for a number of years for your country and watched your close comrades get blown up and everything else, and kids getting shot, and who knows what things you would see. And then you come back and you just can't wait to be home, and then they tell you for your own safety and security you need to live in this city.
Yeah.
And then you think, I just went over there fighting for freedom, and you're going to take my freedom from me?
Yeah.
Then maybe that guy shoots his wife and mother-in-law and kid.
Yeah.
It's this is a problem, because you can't make any absolute rule for anything like this. It's so nuanced and complicated, and every single human being is immensely complex. And then you throw them into a crazy situation like that, and you just, man.
Well, I think it doesn't seem like everyone has this or most certainly not the capacity for warfare, because it is a brutal thing to put your life and your mind through. And I know that it's a statistic that I think I've heard, but it was 3/4 of people who went over to World War II never really fired their weapon, because when these shells and these bullets start coming in, is the first thing they do is lay on the ground or in their foxhole and shit their pants.
Yeah.
Because it turns out a battlefield is a terrifying place to be.
It's right out of your fucking worst nightmares.
Yeah, and like most certainly some people do have the capacity for this, and it's good for.
Well, I wonder how much the military does to. I mean, obviously you need to physically train your troops, and you need to educate them in how to run the guns and run the tanks and the protocol within the platoons and the hierarchy, chain of command, and all that kind of thing. All those structures need in place. But then I wonder how much. I don't think it's any proper place to skimp on making sure that your soldiers have an incredibly well thought out and sophisticated philosophy of life and death and warfare.
Yeah.
And how many soldiers, because you could have some young buck who just says, yeah, I would love to sacrifice myself for my country, and I'll put my life on the line for that, for the sake of everyone else. How many people, I'm sure there are people who are sincere and actually know what it is they're saying, but how many people are just saying something to make everyone think you are this kind of person?
Yeah.
Or how many people are just absolutely naive of what they're actually about to get themselves into? And then they go into the situation, and then they come back, and then they're exposed to just sheer horror and hell and malevolence, and not even just in the situation they're in, but from within themselves, because then they might find themselves gunning people down, and maybe you wind up staring someone in the eyes as you shove your bayonet through their chest, and then you watch their soul leave out of their body through their
Very
expression.
Yeah,
and then you're never the same person, and maybe you're so naive that you signed up for the military and that experience never even crossed your mind before you had it. Mm-hmm. And then you have PTSD, and then, I mean, people really, I don't know what it's like in the military, so I don't know how much they actually try and talk to people about how brutal it actually is going to be. And I'm sure some people are going to have that warrior spirit and naturally be able to kind of pull it off, but then other people
I'm
who
just
might
okay with murdering people and seeing people get blown up.
or maybe they already have a well thought out philosophy about it.
I'm going to suggest I think that's a very small percent of the population. Well, just even this planet. Yeah.
Your point would be that it's about 1/4 of the people who go.
Yeah.
And that's not even so that's just people who actually managed to get off a shot or two before shitting the pants even, or how many people went and actually were able to participate and shoot and kill and do that whole thing, and then are left with PTSD and mental disorder and come home and shoot their kids or whatever. I mean, and then how many people can just understand, because I don't know if people understand that you're going into a war, you're deciding to go to war, you need to be willing to murder, and you need to be willing to be murdered.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. I mean, and so you could spend years thinking about that and never actually really uncover the full depth of what that all really means, because I think people can really fool themselves into thinking it'd be nothing for me to kill someone, and then you kill someone, and then after the fact you're like, holy shit.
Well, you got the privilege of not really being in that moment, of having to be like, holy shit, me or you.
Well, and it's you told me this one time. It's stop, drop, and roll is a great piece of advice for people who aren't on fire.
Yeah, for those who have when you put that essence of panic, just oh shit, roll and jump, or what was it again? Holy shit!
Hey, what was it? Well, that's the thing. Is, I don't think I've told this story on the podcast, but I was actually on fire once. My whole entire left leg was engulfed in flame. It was gasoline that got spilled on my leg, and we were playing with fire.
Posing around.
Yeah, just being kids.